Right, I'll take some graphite grease. This was well stuck with very dried out sticky grease previously. Regardless of the amount of grease that might have been in there, you could certainly see scuff marks through the nickel plating. That's good now. And I will check that the tail of the spring's sitting in the slot. It is. Take some synthetic grease, and I use this on the ratchet teeth of this disc, top and bottom. Those ratchet teeth control the movement of the film advance lever, so it will only move in the forward direction on the forward swing. You can't inch it back, and likewise on the return swing it'll only return to the rest position. You can't push it back forward again. Okay, so that's sitting in position. Just lining up the holes in there. I think this will probably be fine. With the reflexes, you really want another third of a turn of tension on this so that the advance lever returns to the rest position reliably and smoothly. On the 3S, that's probably not so much the case. See if I can get these screws started first. That hole's not lined up. That's better. Now these three screws were loose when we started. Now loose screws there can cause a problem, because not only does it make your film advance lever feel a little bit wobbly, it also means that this disc is effectively wobbling about, and that means that the point at which your film advance releases may vary from time to time, so that can be a nuisance. Alright, well that's all in place at the base, that's good. While I've got it here, I want to assemble the clutch and put that at the top. And normally what I do at this point is take my tripod sockets around and shove it underneath the base of that film advance shaft so that it doesn't fall over and annoy me. This piece, graphite grease again, for much the same reasons, because this stuff is tacky and it stays on those surfaces very well. I'll just find the right pliers. So assemble these components together. That tab on that spring must drop into that notch. It can only go in one way. I'll use my crimp lug pliers to grab that, revolve that to draw the spring in, and put the outer over the top. That's the clutch assembled, and that's nice and smooth. I'll give that a wipe of synthetic grease through the centre. Drop that in on top of the film advance, revolve it till it engages the notches in the top of the take-up spool. Then we have the top bush for the film advance shaft. First I want to apply some grease to those pinions, squeeze that with my thumb, that'll just force that grease in. Quick wipe through the inside. Pop that in place. If I revolve the take-up spool with my thumb, it'll engage the gear here and everything will fall into place. – 'n' 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 'n At the other side we have a standoff. That should be flat side up, not countersink side up. We have a little pawl and the shoulder screw. I'll just put a touch of grease on the top of the shoulder screw so the pawl will revolve smoothly. Put that in place. That little pawl is acted on by a small spring which goes around the head of that screw, and the spring acts to push the pawl in towards the centre. Carrying on, this goes on next. I want to give that a wipe of synthetic grease through the centre and just some around the underside area there. And that, if I put it on there and rotate it counterclockwise, should push the pawl out of the way and engage with the gears. Alright, that's sitting there nicely. This little leaf spring can go in. The sides are sticking up there. This piece goes on. This piece, the washer, the gear, and finally the screw. And as is normal, I haven't got the right screwdriver with me, so just run this in by hand and then I'll go and find the screwdriver. Right, I'll find the screwdriver. The film advance shaft is held by the lock lever at the moment, so I can just tighten the screw up like that. I think we'll put the sprocket shaft in place next. Sprocket here, slot side up. I'll take some synthetic grease, some towards the top, some towards the bottom, and some on the pinion for good measure. This should slide in from the top. Sometimes it doesn't want to go. Just slacken off those two screws we put in earlier. That'll allow enough play here that this will drop in. So holding that with my finger from the top, line it up at the bottom. And rotate the sprocket wheel and shaft until the hole lines up here. And I should have a tiny little screw here that couples the sprocket and the sprocket shaft together. If that screw is reluctant to engage, try rotating the shaft 180 degrees. That's often the secret. Okay, so what else do we want here? Well, we want the catch for the rewind button. So I'll take some molybdenum paste, wipe it around that curved end, slide this into place, fit the return spring, and the shoulder screw. Check that the lever's free to move around that shoulder screw. Tighten that screw up and hook the spring into place. I'm going to lift this end of the spring up, hook it behind the tab here. Just like that. Now, if I hold the lever back and press on the shaft from above, that should pop behind that arm. If I hold my finger on there and rotate the sprocket shaft, it lifts up even higher. Now I can fit the rewind button. I'll lubricate that return spring for the rewind button with a bit of synthetic grease. Put it on the button, put the washer on the button, supporting this from the top so it doesn't press down. Screw this into the base of the sprocket shaft. You might need to fiddle about with this till you get to the stage where the button passes through the washer, so that the washer's not caught on the shoulder of the screw. Should be good. That clip in. Oh, where's that advanced sitting? Here, it clips in and releases. So that's good. That part's done. Alright, what do I want next? I just about want the chrome trim on the top before I do much more than this. So I want to start assembling this baffles and stuff to the body. Bit of cotton fluff there. Oh, there's a bit of a rough spot in the casting, that'll be why. So this piece, two pieces here really, is the baffle. Now this piece has got a little notch on one side of it. You'll be able to tell from the paint marks which way that's sat. Normally I find it more convenient when I'm assembling this to actually glue this piece in place. So that's what I'll do. I'll just take a little blob of glue. Stick it on there. And there. And put this in place. That'll save that falling off while I'm busy trying to do things, because otherwise it will, and it will cause you grief. We'll put that aside for a couple of minutes and then carry on. Okay, that's pretty much close enough. Let's pop this loosely in place. It only goes in one way round. What do we got here? Well, we've got the return spring for this arm. Has to go over that boss. It's awkward to get in place, but it's not terrible. Okay, so that's in place, and basically you can see how that acts to push that lever forward. Yeah, some other pieces. We can start with the shaft. Now the face here with the washer on it, that's the one we're interested in. Lubricate that pinion. Fit that into the body. Got our lever for the rangefinder coupling. I'm going to put a touch of grease top and bottom. And we've got those tiny washers. Which are not a good fit to the diameter of those pins. The washer, the hole in the washer is too big really. But they do the job. See if I can pick up this other one. And that grease, of course, will hold them in place. So this thing. There's a tiny hole in this bracket here. You want to get that arm in there. The other arm has to go into the hole in this bracket. Do this without losing your washer. And then swing that bracket into place in the body, like that. That bracket's held in place with 3 screws. And the screws are only just long enough to do the job. So I'll tighten those 3 screws up. So there we have the components. Now flip the rangefinder arm forward, push this thing back, then drop the rangefinder arm in on top of it. So that moves nicely. Something sometimes worth doing. Get this out. Is this arm on the top here. Give that a wipe with molybdenum paste or light grease. And it just makes sure that it's not sticking. Well, that part's great. At that stage, I think I can put this chrome trim on the top here, because this piece needs to go behind the chrome trim so it doesn't fall out. And that chrome trim, we need a small screw to hold that in position there. I thought I had that one ready to go, but clearly not. Here we go. I did measure the thickness of the chrome trim plates here, top and bottom, and they were indeed thicker than normal. They were 0.6mm instead of 0.4mm, which is what they normally are, which is interesting. It's not like manufacturers to voluntarily use heavier gauge material, which of course would be costing them probably nearly 50% more than the stuff they'd previously used. So it's much more likely that for one reason or another the gauge they wanted was not currently available when they needed to make the parts, and they were forced to use something thicker. Well, that's looking good. The crocking rack. Let's do that. So, bit of synthetic grease. Make sure I get the teeth at the bottom, the teeth at the top, the underside. Fit that into place in the body. Now just the first tooth is engaged here. That little bush goes in there, that's most important. Don't mistake that for one of the black washers that goes at the front of the camera. They are not the same thing. There's a special shoulder screw that goes through that bush. I'll get that screw in place. And this screw here. This hold down plate goes on to weave that over the top of that arm, and two screws hold that down. I've just made a tactical error there. Let's just undo this. I haven't tensioned up my film advance yet. It sounds like the lawnmower man busy outside. So the film advance, let's just put this on a block of wood. Lift the lock lever out of the way. Hold the release lever back. Rotate this one full turn clockwise. Drop the release lever and the lock lever back into position. I think I'll fit a temporary base plate here. I've got a base plate with the front edge nibbled out, and it makes it easy to put the camera back together. This will do nicely. It's more than the front edge nibbled out, that's the whole front edge nibbled off. But that'll do well. It achieves what we want, because we need to support all the stuff under here so nothing falls out. But unlike the reflex models, we're not worried about a return spring for the capping plate, because of course there's no capping plate. Okay, so that's that. Let's put the advance lever on there. Still to clean that advance lever. I can do that. Let's get a couple of screws on here and check the action of that film advance. Press the release, hold down the lock lever, film advance swings smoothly, returns nicely, no arguments. Okay, back where we were. Just gave that shaft a wriggle to engage the gear with that cocking rack. Alright, yeah, the action's nice and smooth, the cocking rack moves well. Returns to the rest position without any arguments. So that part's done. I'm not quite ready to put the shutter back in here yet, but before I put the shutter back in, of course, I've got to put the meter and everything in place. I think I'll put all my leatherettes on all at the same time right at the end. Okay,